Good afternoon, folks. If you had attended our previous session, I'm still Joe. If you didn't, I am now Joe. I'm on staff here at ACFO, and it's my pleasure to be hosting our career fair sessions for today. Just a reminder for those who weren't in the previous session, we are taking questions today via Slido. So if you've got questions for the Administrative Tribunals Support Services of Canada, you can go to slido.com, that's SLIDO.com, and enter the code ACFO-ACAF. And you can go there to submit your questions. We got lots of good questions in the last session. I'm sure we'll get lots more today. But you're not here to hear me. You're here to hear from our friends at the Administrative Tribunal Support Services. So I'm going to turn it over now to Michael, and he's going to walk you through everything you need to know. Michael.
Thanks very much, Joe. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very honored to be talking to you today as part of your career fair. Je suis l'honneur à présenter notre présentation pour la foire de carrière de l'ACAF. Today, I'm going to start with a little bit of a talk about what the ACFO is, with the Atssc is all about. Basically, the Atssc was formed in November of 2014 to provide a common services support to tribunals within the federal public service. The organization provides the specialized expert services required by each tribunal, as well as centralized internal services common to all tribunals. By providing these services, the Atssc enables the tribunals to exercise their individual powers and perform their unique duties and functions according to their respective legislation, rules, and regulations. As it says on the slide, the organization hosts 12 federal administrative tribunals. The Atssc reports to Parliament through the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General, but it does operate at arm's length from the Department of Justice. So the slide shows you basically who it is we serve. We currently, as I said, have 12 departments. Le Atssc offre des services de soutien à 12 tribunaux administratifs fédéraux, ce qui représente une portion des environ 30 tribunaux administratifs fédéraux. Les 12 tribunaux desservis sont généralement de petites organisations dont le nombre de membres à plein temps et à temps partiel varie de 3 à 100 environ. Leurs mandats sont variés et couvrent une vaste gamme de domaines spécialisés allant du commerce national et international à l'administration des sanctions pécuniaires, en passant par les droits de la personne et les droits autochtones, les programmes sociaux, les relations de travail, la protection des divulgateurs et celle des biens culturels. The Atssc's budget consists of funding that was allocated to each tribunal prior to November 2014. No additional funds were provided for the creation of the Atssc itself. However, some additional funding has been acquired over the years, typically following an expansion of a tribunal's mandate. The Atssc's workforce consists of approximately 460 employees, the majority of whom are located in the National Capital Region. The organization also has employees in 4 regional offices: Dartmouth, Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver, and these regional offices support the Canadian Industrial Relations Board. The employees, as I said, 460 employees, is different from the 200 persons called Governor Council appointees who make up the tribunals. These serve as chairpersons, vice chairpersons, or as members of the various tribunals. Le CEDAT relève de l'administrateur en chef, nommé par le gouverneur en conseil pour un mandat portant sur un maximum de 5 ans. L'administrateur en chef a le rang et le statut d'un administrateur général d'un ministère. En conformité à la loi sur le CEDAT, l'administrateur en chef est responsable de la gestion des ressources financières et humaines requises pour le soutien des tribunaux. In order to deliver the support services required by the tribunals, the Atssc is structured with two streams of service: secretariats, who work directly with each tribunal to deliver the specialized services in the tribunal's area of expertise, and directorates, who deliver centralized internal services across the organization. On a day-to-day basis, tribunal members work with Atssc employees who assist them with case files, editing decisions, making travel arrangements for hearings, and any number of tasks required by the tribunal members in the course of their work. Tribunal chairpersons of the 12 tribunals served by the Atssc continue to have supervision over and direction of the work of their respective tribunals. They are able to accomplish their mandates with the assistance of the Atssc. However, the organization cannot exercise a tribunal's mandate in its place. So I'm going to move on a little bit now and talk about finance. La direction des finances est responsable d'élaborer et mettre en œuvre le cadre financier de ces data afin d'assurer la cohérence et la conformité avec le cadre législatif en vigueur. Et c'est aussi responsable d'établir et diriger la prestation des services de gestion financière, de planification stratégique, et de rapport. We also provide procurement and material management functions, as well as providing strategic advice and guidance to the chief administrator and senior management team on all aspects of financial resource management. So now we get to the crux of my presentation today. In fact, the Atssc has a current requirement for an FI3 who's an experienced senior financial advisor in the area of internal controls, looking for an opportunity to make a difference in what is a relatively new department. The fact of the matter is, Atssc is really in an infancy stage when it relates to internal controls. Happens to be the reason I happen to know that is because I manage this function, and we've got a lot of work to do. There has been a preliminary look at internal controls, that covering entity level controls as well as information technology general controls. But all the work around mapping out, examining controls for business processes has not yet been completed, and barely started, in fact. There's lots of work to do, and really it's a very interesting time as far as the department is concerned. I should also say that the position is also responsible for financial systems. I've given you the slide here, which basically talks to what the internal control functions are and the responsibilities within the department. As far as systems is concerned, it's a small minor part of the job. It's more of an overall making sure that everything's functioning job, just because our SAP system is run and hosted by Treasury Board Secretariat. We are part of a cluster of, I think now 14 departments that run off the Treasury Board Secretariat SAP system. Just to again give a few little technical things. Of course, it's a 37.5-hour work week like a normal FI is. Possibility of doing the odd occasional overtime, not very often, I would say. Work is currently being done 100% at home right now. The position currently requires a secret level security clearance and as well as bilingual imperative CBC. And for a little plug for the department, all the wonderful things that are a big benefit to people for working at the Atssc, and one of them that's biggest for all of us is the fact that we have our own compensation advisors, because we do have direct entry to access to Phoenix, so we don't go through Miramichi. It saves us a lot of trouble because we catch a lot of the pay errors which Phoenix happens to create. You have a wide range of responsibilities due to the fact the organization is so small, and that small stature also allows you a much greater access to senior management because of the limited supervisory chain. We are currently working remotely, and finance, I suspect, will be one of the last ones to go back. I don't have anybody that is in a critical function that would be returning at any time soon in terms of work back in the workplace is concerned. Atssc is one of the top organizations in the Public Service Employee Survey, so our ratings were fairly good on that. And we do provide various training opportunities, coaching services, and have communities of practice. And that's it for me, Joe. Oh, and I can't hear you.
Thanks for that, Michael. Sorry about that. So yeah, I see
No
some
worries.
questions have already started to come in. So I'll get those up on the screen here quickly. But the first one that's there, and I think it's a good question, you spoke a little bit about some of the benefits of being in a smaller department. But one person's wondering, you know, what that does for turnover. Is there a high degree of turnover for, especially for FIs in your department, given that it's a small department, or do people tend to stick around and stay a little longer?
Actually, that's a great question. The fact of the matter is people tend to stay around and stick around a little longer. And I suspect, and I'm guessing, but I think a lot of that is because of the fact that people are comfortable in the environment they're working with. We all know the expression, the grass is greener on the other side of the hill. Well, the finance function is the same from one department to the other department. The only change you're really going to get is the people you're working with. And most of all, us are pretty happy with where we are and the management team at the Atssc, and I think that's what keeps people around.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. And there's a very similar question as well about the number of 4 positions. You've got an opening for a 3 now, but are there opportunities for people who are successful in a role as a 3 to move up to a 4?
So currently we have, I'm gonna, 1, 2, 3. We have currently 4 FI4 positions within the finance unit. 3 of them are manager positions, and one is a manager of 1 in the sense that he's currently dealing with a large portfolio dealing with our vote net revenue. So there are positions within the department for that opportunity to move up.
That's wonderful. And there's I'm going to ask 2 questions at once because I think one can be dispensed with pretty quickly. So the first question is just overall, how many FIs are there at the department? And the next question speaks more to PD. You mentioned in your last slide about some of the benefits, access to training and development. Is there a set budget, or what does that access look like in your department?
So there are, I believe there are like 23 FIs, if I'm correct, and that's strictly because that number may seem low to many of you, but the fact of the matter is the finance unit is 40 people all told, and that includes a lot of ASs that I have actual management over, including accounting operations, and a travel center of expertise where we provide travel services to the entire department. Sorry, the last part, the PD. There is no set budget in terms of training. It's sort of more up to the director of finance to manage her budget. So she goes for a call out at the beginning of the year as we look through PMAs, and everybody sort of submits what they need, and we see whether we're in budget and whether something has to be cut off. So those discussions are had in terms of managed level, but there's no set amount in terms of training.
Okay, great. And I love the specificity in some of these questions. This is a well-informed question, obviously. Do you foresee moving to a cost recovery model in the future? This is from a member who has some experience with cost recovery at PSPC.
No, I don't. And I think that literally, now there is a vote net revenue having to do with this social services tribunal, but that is really specific to social services because we recover costs from the Canadian Pension Plan fund for expenses related to running the social services tribunal. So I don't see us doing cost recovery. The whole reason, well, at least our theory on the whole reason why the government formed the Atssc was to try and take synergies of putting tribunals together and having one unit run them. So I really don't see that happening.
Okay, great. That's a great answer to a great question. There's another question here, and I know it's something you and I have talked about, Michael, and you talked about, again, it's one of these benefits of small departments. A member's asking, would you be correct in assuming that FIs in your department get to see more functions and fewer silos, just given the size of the organization?
I certainly think so, and especially, when you're doing that job where you're touching a lot of stuff. So financial management advisors within the department certainly get a further understanding of what operations of a tribunal are all about because of the consultation that they're doing with clients. And I think when you're looking at internal controls or you're supervising an accounts payable unit, because of all the different types of transactions you're seeing, you get a better sense of what the business is all about in a much more wide and broad sense of it as well in terms of scope.
So I'm gonna combine these next two questions, and that clears the deck. So if you do have more questions, please, we've got a couple more minutes, so feel free to submit some. First one is, do you have any special programs for people who are interested in pursuing a CPA designation? And then the next question is again, pretty quick one to answer, I think. Where are the offices located? I know you talked about working remotely for the foreseeable future, but when that does change, where are the offices located?
Sure. I can't say that we have any current special programs for interested employees in getting their CPA. As far as I know, any employee, certainly in the FI category, who's chasing after a CPA, there is an arrangement that has been done in terms of management and helping them out with that. But there's no sort of policy around it. Currently, our offices are located at home, but the building is at 333 Laurier Avenue West. We're in a tower housed mostly with the wonderful Canada Revenue Agency.
Great, thanks very much for that, Michael. We did get one more question popped in. It's one we've seen with the previous department as well, about sort of flexibility before the pandemic, and I assume that informs some thoughts about flexibility post-pandemic. So what was the policy like before the pandemic, and how do you see that changing because of what we've experienced over the last few months?
This is a great question, and I can tell you what it was pre-pandemic, but what this is going to look like in the end for me is still a rather lost. About 2 years ago, we made a decision to start an activity-based workplace. So we did that as a pilot project, and on the 15th, we only have basically 2 floors within 333 Laurier, and on the 5th floor, it was a workplace where you didn't have an assigned desk and you could come and click in wherever you needed. And part of the activity-based workspace concept was that you would be working part of that time from home. So my staff who were part of ABW would work 2 days from home, 3 days in the office. And that's, that flexibility is there. I would suspect that we'd be closer to 3 days 3 days at home and 2 days in the office when we return, if that ever happens. There are certain departments who have decided they're not going back. That decision's not yet been made at the Atssc.
All right, and we've got one last question, and we'll end it on this one because we are closing it on time. Given it's a small department, are there any unilingual positions within finance?
There are unilingual positions at the lower levels, but in accordance with a decision by OCRO, all FI3 and above are going to be certainly going forward fully bilingual at the CBC level. But there are some lower decisions that are unilingual, I do believe.
Okay, great. Michael, thank you very much for your time, and thanks for those who submitted questions and took some time to tune in. Really appreciate your time. Just as a reminder, on the ACFO website where you found the link to this broadcast, you'll also find a link to submitting your resume if you're interested, and a CV template there as well for those who need a little bit more help getting their CV ready. And take the time, as we mentioned before, take the time, fill out that email, let Michael know what it was about the presentation that caught your eye and what drew you to the Atssc in the first place. And with that, Michael, thank you very much for your time. I'm going to shut her down now. For those paying attention to all of these sessions today, the next one starts at 2:30 with Global Affairs Canada. Michael, one more time, thank you, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Joe. Bye-bye.